Well, see, that's why it helps when your show host is here at the beginning of the show, because if you have an audio issue, you can get that fixed. I don't know why it changed, but nevertheless, here we are. Let me start all over again. Welcome. It's an Overreaction Monday show. I'm Jeff Ketchum. Anwar Richardson will be here momentarily, just in time for my microphone to start working. Binks is right. That, you guys missed my best stuff ever. No doubt about it. The first 30 seconds of the show, which you did not hear, best thing I've ever done. I will try to get that fixed earlier. The one time Anwar is like 5 minutes late, and it's the time that my microphone changed settings and we weren't able to confirm that anyway. Guys, it's a big week. It was a big week. Texas beats Oklahoma. I have some leftover thoughts on that game while we wait for Anwar to show up. And if you missed it, comment, super chat it away, like, comment. There's no reason to like the show. We need to earn it, right? So while I want your likes, we need to earn them today after starting a little bit late and then my microphone not working and then me just staring into the abyss. Thank goodness I have you guys in the chat to to let me know when things are going sideways. So some leftover Oklahoma game thoughts before we move on to Georgia, because, kind of a big game. Number one, look, it's not going to get as bad as it got for Texas, but what Oklahoma is going through right now, these are the Charlie Strong years. Once they're out of them and they have enough time to look back on this thing, they will look back on the Brent Venables experience and the hires that he made and the decisions personnel-wise that were made, and they will think of this maybe not the way Texas fans think of Charlie Strong, because Charlie couldn't do anything right. But that's the way they will remember Brent Venables. He is their Charlie Strong. He is the guy that should have that job, who's not good enough to have that job, who currently has the job, and he's just not going to make that right. And they'll be playing for bowl eligibility this year. He'll be coaching for his job next year, if he even gets next year. Because if you were Oklahoma and you were forward thinking, hello, Anwar, boy, you missed one hell of a start to the show. In retrospect, Anwar, and I can't hear you any more than they could hear me at the first 30 seconds of the show when my mic was on the wrong channel.
It helps when you turn it on.
It does. I didn't have that problem, Anwar. I didn't have that problem, but nevertheless, I had a mic problem where, quite honestly, we both needed each other this morning.
Yes, we did.
2 seconds before we went live, I needed to go, mic check, and you needed to go,
can't hear you.
And then I needed to go, you needed to say something, and then I needed to tap on the mic and let you know, no mics.
That's what happens when teachers take today off and you're scrambling, trying to find, stuff with your kids. And so, that's what happens when teachers are like, today, what's today, like Fair Day or something?
Come on, Leander School District. This didn't need to happen. Hey, my kids are on a 4-day weekend. They had Friday off and they get today off. And I don't really know why, but they're thrilled about it. Anwar, as I was wrapping up some thoughts on Oklahoma, because we'll move into the Georgia game in a second, because it's a big game, because it will garner a lot of attention, and deservedly so. I'm left by just how uncompetitive Oklahoma is against really good teams. That was a Texas team that never got out of second gear and didn't play, at least on offense, better than a C-level game. I almost don't know how to grade the Texas defense. They get an A, but the competition was so poor. Oklahoma is so bad on offense. They have no identity. They don't know what to do at quarterback. I come out of this weekend just thinking to myself, this is what Oklahoma fans must have thought of Texas during the Charlie Strong era.
Oh my God.
Let this go on as long as it possibly can, because as long as that guy's in charge, Oklahoma is a non-threatening entity as it relates to Texas football.
Man, they are that is, Catch, since I've been here, the worst Oklahoma football team that I've seen. This is the worst product that I've seen Oklahoma put out, because, Catch, I've seen Oklahoma, and I know they're going to blame injuries. Like that's their excuse, right? They're going to blame, like, hey, our receivers are hurt. We got some offense. Like, they're going to blame it on injuries, right? Fine. But they have looked inept, throughout most of the offseason, and looked inept through here. And the one thing Oklahoma could always used to be able to hang their hat on for years, right, Catch, was got a really good offense. Defense is kind of crappy. But nonetheless, they can hang their hat and say, we're good at least in this area, until like the last couple of years where they actually got a little bit better on defense. And now, Catch, they're bad in all areas. They were undisciplined as well, which and it's not your Lincoln Riley's Oklahoma. It's not your Bob Stoops Oklahoma. This Brent Venables Oklahoma team is not good. I don't think this coaching staff is developing guys the way that they should. Again, if I say to myself or ask the question, how many guys do you feel like have improved under Brent Venables over 3 seasons? You at the end of the day, you took Stutzman off your list, for your all 22. When it was all said and done, you're like, nah, I'm good on that one too.
I tried to throw him a bone.
You tried to, and you're like, nah, screw that. So it is. You'll have your power. I did my power rankings. You saw mine. And
I have not yet, but
yeah. And so they're like they're third team for me, Catch.
I had them 14th last week, and I feel justified.
Oh yeah, they're bad. They're bad. It's not going to get any better outside of Maine. That's their only win that I see on the schedule. And I don't see everything else. I'm like, man, you better hope it all falls together for you on that particular day. Because the last thing I'll say, Catch, on this one is that Texas has given everybody the blueprint on what you need to do to just curb stomp Oklahoma. Like they've given it to you. They don't got the receivers. They don't have the run game. You can blitz occasionally when you want to. You get your front four there. Like the quarterback is probably not really going to complete a lot of passes. Catches one of the few times I've taken the less on somebody, because I like to take the more. And I took the less on Hawkins, and I was fine. Now my other picks were not that great, but they are. It is the worst OU product that I've seen. I don't see. First of all, you got to fire the OC after the season, because you got to sacrifice somebody. And I think Brent Venables is a dead man walking. I don't think he's the guy for the job. I don't think he's suited for that. Again, the same things we would say about the guys that we were covering. We're like, man, I don't think that's the person. And at some point, yeah, they may have had some highs. Like we had the high under Tom Herman, right? It was like, oh snap! But even Tom Herman was never this bad. Like
a year ago was their 2015.
Yeah,
Venables is going to stay 4 years in all likelihood. He'll lose to Texas 3 times. And then they'll look back and they'll go, remember 2023, the long finger he was pointing? No, that was Charlie. But they'll say 2023 was, how did that even happen is what they'll ask. And the answer to that will be, well, because we had a really good quarterback, maybe not great, but we had a really good quarterback in Dylan Gabriel, and then we kicked that dude to the curb, and then the guy that replaced him wasn't as good. And I got to be honest, if I'm Michael Hawkins' dad, if I'm Michael Hawkins Sr. today, when his son first gets on the field, it had to feel like what a massive opportunity.
Yeah.
Today, it has to feel like, oh, you guys selected my son to roll under the bus. Because that guy is a young quarterback. Now think about like Dante Moore a year ago at UCLA when he was like, I don't want to play. I'm not ready. I understand I'm the future, but I want to sit and watch. And then they played him and he was like, I'm out of here. I told you I didn't want to play. You played me. I'm going to go to Oregon. I'll be okay. Thanks for nothing, UCLA. Michael Hawkins, there's a point in Saturday's game when a new quarterback needed to come in. But they've positioned themselves where Jackson Arnold ain't going in.
Correct.
And I think that was proven on Saturday. If there was ever a game to give Jackson Arnold a chance, what could go wrong? You were already down by 3-4 touchdowns. Put someone in to see if they can get it going. Michael Hawkins is the guy for the rest of this season, and he's going to get blamed partially for it. They will say the quarterback position was bad, and Michael Hawkins was part of it. And when they go get a quarterback in the portal next year, Hawkins will have nothing to show for all of the lumps he's elected to take for this team. You can just see this from the outside coming a mile away. Anwar, we've seen this. And Oklahoma fans are in the middle of it, and they'll make excuses. Look, Texas fans did. There were people who were out on Charlie Strong, second game, UCLA, got the coin toss wrong. And it was like, whoa. And then the clock management wasn't good. The signs were there early. I feel like the signs are everywhere. And it's just a matter of how long Oklahoma will allow themselves to ignore the signs because they want to hope and believe so badly. And if you're a Texas fan, player, coach, y'all just keep on believing. We'll do that again next year. There was no threat Saturday onward, none.
And here's the thing, Catch. I know Oklahoma fans will again, they're going to use the excuse card because I already talked to Opinion Sports Show over the weekend, and that's where they are at. But Catch, you know this. You pointed it out. In 2 of the last 3 games in this rivalry, Texas has outscored Oklahoma 83-3. In 2 of the last 3 games, they've outscored Oklahoma 83-3. Like, that's your wake-up call when you want to know, like, the distance between your program and Texas. You can see it right now. Like, you saw, like, Texas is pulling away. Now, again, they'll hang their hat on last season. That's fine. What good they lost that game. And again, you know what the Texas fan will say? It's just like how Texas sometimes have an upset against Oklahoma, and they're like, still went to the playoffs, right? You beat us, but we still went to the playoffs. Like, what's more important? We got to the playoffs. We don't even matter at that point. Remember, 2015, even though that happened, Catch, they still went on. Like, it was one hiccup, and they still continue to move on. And Texas, it continued to move on. But then the following year, now, even from a depth perspective, Catch, knock on wood, but if Texas had their top 3 receivers say, you know what, we got a cold this week and we just can't play. And you had to go to the next man up, the offense would still be fine, Cat. Like, you'd say to yourself, oh, okay, so wait, oh man, so we just got to start Ryan Wingo this week. You say we have to start Silas Bolden this week. We have to, like, you would go down the list of guys and say, oh, okay, well, we'll just throw in these other guys who are pretty damn good.
If they had needed to roll out Parker Livingstone and Aaron Butler and, Jonte Cook, no offense to Jonte, but he ain't getting on the field, so he can be used in this example. They'd have won that game nonetheless. And it's time to move on from Oklahoma, really, because Georgia's on deck. Mm-hmm. And all that Oklahoma fans need to know about Oklahoma, they're really not worthy of our conversation. I did a show on War last year, like this year. I can't remember when it was, but it was sometime in the middle of the summer. And I remember the tone of the show was, isn't it weird that 5 months have gone by and we haven't talked about Oklahoma at all? Mm-hmm. None. And Oklahoma fans, if you like watching us, this show, House Divided, what you need to know, and maybe this is a good thing, maybe this is your escape, we're about to go months where you're just not talked about. Maybe 11 months.
Yeah.
Maybe a mention here or there in the offseason. Hey, look, Oklahoma did something. Oklahoma, I'm telling you, I had them at 14th in last week's SEC Power Poll. They'll remain 14th this week. The only thing keeping them out of 15th was they stole a win away from Auburn. They're playing for bowl eligibility this week against South Carolina at home, from my perspective. They don't win that game. Good luck. Good luck. Getting to 6 is going to be very difficult if they can't beat South Carolina at home. And at this point, South Carolina is a better team than Oklahoma. They would be my pick in that game if I bothered to make a pick in that game. Let's turn our heads and attention to Georgia. 1 versus 4, 1 versus 5, depending on which poll you look at. Chad Hastings came up with the stat last night in our team's channel that in the history of DKR Texas Memorial Stadium, there's only been a top 5 matchup twice all time in the history of Texas football at that stadium. And they've been playing there for a long time. The last time it happened was 2006. Before that, it was 1980, I believe. I need to go back and look and see the stat that he put up. Hold on. Let me read this Chad stat for everybody that came in yesterday. Texas hosted a top 5 matchup at DKR twice, ever. 2006, 1970.
Wow.
That's it. It's hard for me to believe, as somebody that has covered Texas football for so long, that it's not more than that. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Texas hasn't spent a lot of time in the top 5. It's a big game. It is essentially the first time in a couple of decades that this type of matchup exists at DKR and Anwar. I don't know if this is the place where we need to start, but we might as well. I think you and I are mostly on the same page with Quinn Ewers. I look at Saturday, not once did I think that they needed to replace him. Not once did I think, well, Arch needs to come in because Quinn doesn't have it. I thought Quinn played poorly, but I thought he looked rusty. And I thought it was an error on us to just assume that he would come back and play lights out because he had done so a couple of other times. Not all injuries are the same. Not all comebacks are the same. I'm as guilty as anybody of just thinking, add Quinn into the lineup. He's 95% healthy. He's going to throw for 350 yards. It didn't happen. And yet, as a Arch Manning guy, I think, well, it's Quinn. And Quinn will be the quarterback this week. And that won't nothing's going to change that. But what I'm going to tell you, because I'm seeing it in my text messages, I'm seeing it in my responses to my 10 thoughts from the weekend. In the minds of a lot of fans, that was Quinn's mulligan. If that same performance were to happen again this week against Georgia, they want Arch in the game in the second quarter. And I keep saying, guys, that's not going to happen. He is not going to give up on Quinn Ewers. That opens up a genie that you can't put back into the bottle. No, 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 no. But Texas fans, a segment of them, hard to quantify what the actual percentage is. But I'm telling you, you can go read the comments in my 10 thoughts from the weekend as recent as the last hour. And I have people telling me, nah, man, Texas trying to win a championship. It ain't show feelings, it's show business. And if that happens again, well, you got to put 16 in the ball game. I don't believe that, but we are in an interesting place where Texas fans have seen Arch Manning now up close with their eyes, and they've said, okay, Quinn gets to come back and be the guy. But I think the tolerance level for Texas fans is much lower than ours.
I mean, okay. How can I say something insulting without being insulting?
I mean, just be insulting.
That would be the most ass backwards thing that you can do. And anyone who thinks that is just a prisoner of emotions and not logic, reason, or understanding of football. Because that's not what it's not going to happen, nor should it happen for a bunch of reasons. First of all, we are halfway through the season. So let's get there's 6 games. I say regular season. There's 6 games left. Okay, when it's all said and done, and then you're going to probably have the championship game and then the playoffs game. So maybe there's another few games that are left. First and foremost, let's go back to the performance of Quinn Ewers. At the end of the day, there was some rust. At the end of the day, it was not his best performance. And at the end of the day, Texas won 34-3, and by 31 points. And so you're saying like, hey man, if we keep winning by 31 points, but our quarterback doesn't look lights out, man, it's time to pull the plug on this. What are you saying? Like, Catch, the one thing that has stood out to me as I've analyzed, I'm watching more college football now than I've ever had before. There are a lot of bad quarterbacks in college football. There are a lot. If South Carolina has a quarterback that could just complete a throw when it counted, they win that game. But they didn't have that. There's a lot of bad quarterbacks that are out there. And if you're going to nitpick over one of the good ones, I'm not even saying he's great, right? I'm not even going to have a should he be in the Heisman conversation.
Yeah, we just retire that though.
We're done with that. That one's done. That one's done. I've moved on. I have not booked my tickets to New York. I'm not, I'm not booking tickets to New York or anything like that. If I go to New York, it'll be on my own dock. But Catch, like at the end of the day, what Texas fans forget, like they've always wanted the next thing, right? They've always moved on to the next. And sometimes that you still have young guys who need to grow. I think the most positive thing that could occur has occurred, which is Arch Manning has been able to get reps this season. He's been able to have starts this season, and then he gets to sit and wait and wait his time. But I don't see anything about Quinn. Two more things before I let you jump in. There's nothing that Quinn. We love Quinn and believe in him. However, we're not losing a game just so he can figure it out. You haven't lost a game, nor have you had one that's close. You haven't even had a close
I'm
game.
telling you, these people are foaming.
This is just ridiculous. There hasn't even been a close game where you've had to say, oh, snap. This is the same group of people, Catch, who after La Monroe was saying, well, yeah, I guess he's not ready. I can't wait for Quinn to come back because we sure need him. And now it's like, oh, man, he didn't go lights out versus OU. And here's the other thing. If you're Sark and you got a potential to have your quarterback drafted and put that on your resume and then move on to Arch, who then ends up being the number 1 overall pick, why the hell would you screw that up? Like, why the hell would you say to yourself, you know what? I know Quinn's about to get drafted. He's about to be out. Quinn, listen, if y'all don't like Quinn, can I just say this? It's October. He'll be gone in a couple of months. I'll stand with Quinn. I'll stand with Quinn by myself. What's one more chance saying? He goes, the majority of fans want Quinn, at least the smart ones. It's just the Arch fans are louder. Let's not act like the few speak for the whole. Catch.
I think that's naive because I'll just tell you this. I'm in a group chat with a bunch of my boys from high school. And on game days, I'm not really in the conversation, right? Because I'm working. But I can remember Saturday being at Texas Card House social and like 4 in a row. Put in Manning, put in Manning, put in Manning, put in Manning. It wasn't these guys they're not extremists. They really are. They're just regular fans. And they just want Texas to win. And it's a hard thing knowing that you've got restraints.
They won by 31 points.
Yeah, but this was in the first half when the offense wasn't doing anything. And look, I agree with you for all of the reasons that I think are obvious. They're not going to burn Quinn. They do have a chance. Quinn does, it's not, I don't think Quinn could win the Heisman, but there's still a world out there where he could still be a Heisman finalist that Could he get in the top 4? Yeah. I mean, look, Travis Hunter got hurt this week. There will be injuries. There will be bad games. These things have a way of having ebb and flow to them that it makes talking about them in October feel foolish by the time you get to late November. There's still a lot of football to be played, and guys can come and go. But I do think Arch Manning is better than Quinn. I wouldn't make the switch. It's a great team that right now believes in its starting quarterback. Quinn is very good. But I do think in my heart of hearts, if you ask me, who do I think is better? I think Arch Manning is better. I think some of the reasons why I think Arch is better is that part of what happened to Saturday with Quinn, he came back and having not played and not been in a rhythm, he reverted back to bad habits, bad footwork. Really the footwork's the main thing. Like his feet were just everywhere. And it's hard to throw the football accurately when your feet aren't good. It's funny. I made this comment in my column, and I didn't mean this towards Texas. I meant it towards his private quarterback coach. Man, if you've been working with the dude for 4 years and you haven't fixed his feet yet, maybe it's time to get a new personal quarterbacks coach. Because the thing Quinn Ewers has to fix when he goes into the NFL, he can't be doing this thing where his feet pointing all sideways and he's throwing off of one foot at one point. And I realize he's rusty. But when things go bad for Quinn, mechanically he can't break down. That has to be. And I thought through the first 10 quarters of this season where he was healthy, he looked like a quarterback that had put that behind him. But man, if you tell me Quinn's going to play bad, I'm at a point now where I know one of the big reasons that mechanically he'll be sloppy. They'll look at the film today and they will look at what he did from a technique, from a mechanic standpoint, and they'll say, well, the good news is that can all be cleaned up. The bad news is it was everywhere. But to me, the call is to stay with. And one of the points I was making.
Okay, ask a question, quick catch. Going against Georgia this weekend, which quarterback gives Texas the better chance of winning?
I think Arch is better.
But what's my question?
I just said it. I think Arch is better.
So you think Texas has a better chance of winning with Arch this weekend than Quinn?
Yeah.
Based on what?
Because I think he's better. I think he's a better football player.
Did you think he was better against La Monroe?
I didn't really pose that question a ton. He's still a young quarterback who's going to have moments, but his upside is so high. If you're talking about, because the thing is, I thought we were beyond the edge that I would give Quinn is I thought we were beyond the moments. That, okay, the one thing you definitely get with Quinn is that there's a floor that's pretty high, that his worst is still very good. So maybe he's not great all of the time, but he's still going to be very good at a minimum. I didn't think he was very good on Saturday. I thought they called the dogs off in the passing game. I thought in the second half, Sark basically said, look, this game is won. My quarterback's not playing well. I'm not going to ask him to do much. Hence, he threw for 77 yards in the second half. Really didn't do anything. They weirdly played kind of the same in a phone booth offense in the second half, up by 3 scores. They were running clock. And I think the thought was, if I just have Quinn keep throwing it all over the place like we want to, I think the results might not be good. I think they just took their foot off the gas on offense because they could. And I think they feel like they'll live to fight another day with Quinn Ewers starting on Saturday. My expectations for Quinn Ewers on Saturday is that he's going to be very good against Georgia. I do not anticipate the same type of performance. In discussions with Texas fans on Orange Bloods, if the same thing happens on Saturday against Georgia that happened against Oklahoma, where the offense starts really slow, and he's clearly not quite having it. I believe they will stick with Quinn. And I don't think they'll be reactionary, because I don't believe this Georgia game is as important for Texas as we'll hype it up to be. They've been so dominant that they've got some wiggle room and some mulligans that they can use that, for instance, Georgia doesn't have. Georgia will come into this game knowing we can't lose. Texas doesn't have that. They haven't lost, and they haven't lost a conference game. So, and I think the schedule is very manageable after this. So I think that this is almost like a free hit for Texas in terms of they'd almost have to try not to make the playoffs at this point. And I don't think Sark at halftime of this game, if they were losing, let's say 13-3, I don't think he pulls the plug on Quinn, because he knows what it would mean. He knows what that would do to Quinn's draftability. He knows that the genie would be out of the bottle, and suddenly there would be a Quinn Arch conversation the rest of the season. I don't think he wants that. I think he realizes he's got two quarterbacks who were both among the best 10 quarterbacks in college football. So they don't need to panic. But there are Texas fans who feel like, no, this is not Quinn Ewers' football team. And if he struggles like that again this week against Georgia, you have to put Arch in.
But the thing is, he's done nothing. He's done nothing over a series of games that has said, like, oh man, he's teetering on the brink.
Oh,
like,
I agree.
There's no outside of it. What's crazy is outside. If you look at this literally the same guy who a few weeks ago leads Texas up into Ann Arbor, and they pull off a win against Michigan, one of the Sark's signature wins of his tenure, and that was literally last month. And now a couple of weeks later, it's like, hey man, this dude don't step up. I'm just telling you. I know we're the number one ranked team in the country, but I'm just saying we got to throw in that other guy. It's an asinine thought process, because there's nothing that says that. I think people sometimes they're confusing upside, which is futuristically, as opposed to where someone else is. And so, sure, you may have somebody who we all agree where Arch's upside is. Like, we know
he's the nation's number one ranked quarterback right now. If he had enough, a week ago, he had enough pass attempts, and he's the only major college quarterback in the country with a quarterback efficiency rating above 200, which is 30 points higher than Quinn with roughly the same sample size.
If it was close, then if it was close, then what they're saying is Steve Sarkisian is somewhat inept in his assessment of a quarterback, because if you got this guy who is that close or better than the starting quarterback, then what you're saying is Steve Sarkisian is an idiot and he doesn't know what he's doing.
Oh,
and
that's rough.
That he would have to be an idiot if for him to purposely start somebody who he feels like is not better than the guy.
It's more complicated than that, and you know that.
It's actually easier than that, because
you've got one guy who's going to be a first-round draft pick.
His name is Arch Manning. I can literally.
Do you think Arch Manning is going to be the number one player taken in an NFL draft in the future? Do you?
Yes. Upside. Yes.
Do you think Quinn will be the number one overall pick in an NFL draft?
No.
Okay. Well, we are in complete unison. We both agree, though, that Quinn will be a first-round pick, right?
No.
You're not sold that Quinn will absolutely be a first-round pick?
I don't know that to be. If you say 100% sold, I think he's got to finish off strong the second half of the season to solidify that.
I think quarterback play in the NFL is so desired, and young quarterback play is so hot that somebody will take him in the first round off of upside alone, especially if you could get him like 15 through 32. The risk is minimal if you hit.
I would love for him to be in that range where there's no pressure to come in right away. to spend a year to get your body right, all those kind of things, and then be on a good team, and then go in that way. Now, of course, he wants the money, but go ahead, continue with what you're saying.
No, I was just going to say it gets tricky when you are when you have that kind of talent that we're talking about. Again, I think we're talking about both of these guys are among the best quarterbacks in college football. I think you could probably count on one hand the number of teams across college football that would pass on the opportunity to take either of these two guys over what they currently have. It's not a huge list of schools that if you offered them either Quinn or Arch for the rest of the season, that they wouldn't take that deal. For instance, I'm not sure that if I'm Ohio State and I had a chance.
First of all, hold on. I have not deleted anything in the chat. I don't know what you guys are talking about. So don't accuse me of anything. I've deleted nothing. I'm barely. So don't. I'm sorry, Catch, but don't. I don't know what you guys are saying in the chats. But if someone deleted it, they deleted it themselves. But I have not done shit. Like, don't put that on me.
I don't even think we can delete. You can ban.
You can't delete chats. You
can ban users and like put them in a 1 week timeout.
Or I don't even know how to do that like live in a show though.
I don't know. Believe me, I got two. I can't walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. This was like last week onward. There was an allegation that we skipped a super chat, and it was from some guy I think named Girth Ketchum, and this guy's super chat was that Bill Norton was going to catch the game-winning touchdown pass. And the people in the chat were convinced that we were purposefully not reading the super chat. I was like, anyway.
No, and they can see how complicated this stuff is, depending what you have. Like, there's no super chat alert in the thing that we use that shows us like, oh my God, there's a super chat that's come in. But no,
we have to constantly scroll back and make sure that we haven't missed anything.
Yeah,
and the chat's constantly moving.
I'm sorry, so they were bitching about something. It was slightly offensive because I can take it. I don't have to delete anybody's chat. Trust me, ain't nobody here scaring me like that.
I don't even know what I was saying other than I think that these are two really good. We've had other conversations in the past, aka Sam Ehlinger and Shane Buechele, where both quarterbacks are sub 130 guys. And it's like, who should start? And it's like, does it matter? We talked ourselves into it mattering a lot. And in the end, it was two subpar quarterbacks at the time. I mean, Sam eventually turns into a good player. So does Shane. But if you can go back to when that discussion took place, circa 2017, one was a true freshman. The other one was a second-year player. And then, those guys just weren't good then. These two guys are good. And we're talking about a guy in Arch Manning that would be starting right now for 97% of the college football teams across the country. Same with Quinn Ewers. Maybe that's 100%. Maybe it's 99%. But it's an elevated conversation of both of these guys can get you there and win you the thing, I think. And I think it's complete. I think it's ridiculous to give up on Quinn. Look, you just need to be logic-based and allow for, he hasn't played in a few weeks. Does it stand to reason that he won't come in hitting on all cylinders? Yeah. Well, he didn't. And because I think that's a rational thought to give space for, he might come in and not be 100% in rhythm with his team. And it might take a game to get that back. Yeah. Now look, if Quinn Ewers plays as poorly Saturday against Georgia, which I don't think is going to happen, but in a world where he did, I think there's a conversation that you have to have where it just sounds a little bit like Quinn can't play at this level. And I don't expect him to. But if he did for a second game in a row, I think we would at least have the conversation of Quinn really needs to get his mojo back, because as we get into November, late November, closer to the playoffs, they need their quarterback to be directing traffic. They need him to be the guy that was in charge. On Saturday, Texas played a team that was so poor that it didn't matter if Quinn Ewers played. They won by 31 on a day where Quinn Ewers in the second half barely had a 100 quarterback rating. That in the second half, they were already up by 3 touchdowns. They didn't need to do anything else. He had a bad first quarter, a really good second quarter, and then the rest of the game was Texas, I think, trying to protect him. You know, you won't necessarily be able to do that this week. Quinn's got to get his rhythm back, and it needs to happen or they won't beat Georgia. They can't beat Georgia if Quinn plays like he did on Saturday. The question is, the issue is, I don't think that's going to happen again. But look at the running back position. A couple of weeks ago, Jaden Blue had a 100-yard plus game, 4 touchdowns. The next week, he fumbles a couple of times. The week after that, Trey Wisner has a great game, and now it feels like no other position on the field quite gets treated like quarterback. And in a true meritocracy, if you're not playing well and you have somebody else that can play well, then you play the guy that can play well that's not playing poorly.
Yeah, but that's not how it happens from the quarterback.
Oh, I know.
Because the reason why I'll go back to this. The reason why Hudson Card lost his job in a Steve Sarkisian offense was because Hudson couldn't make the decisions in real time. He couldn't make the throws in real time. And then when Sark sat down with him the following day to go and look through the film, he couldn't explain why he was doing things. He couldn't explain what he was or was not seeing. And as a result of that, Sark pulled the plug and said, we got to go with Casey Thompson because Hudson Card couldn't process things in real time. So there's a difference if you're talking about, he may have missed a throw, but is he seeing the offense? That's what matters to Sark. Is he knowing what's going on throughout the whole thing? Yes. Okay, well then fine. We'll tighten that up. We'll get you through that. The only way you lose it from a quarterback perspective under Sark is if you don't know what's going on. And Quinn knows what's going on. That's why it's not a non-starter for me. The second thing is a non-starter for Sark. The second thing is, this is an analogy I will give you guys. And I'll go back, and we have a super chat that came in, so I'll make sure we get to that. But this is an analogy I'll give to you, and I'll go back to my Florida roots. When I was in Florida, everybody knew that Tim Tebow was going to be the next great quarterback. But he still had to sit behind Chris Leak. But we all knew at some point that Tebow mania was going to take over. And I can tell you in the state of Florida, Tim Tebow was God. I don't know what he was here, but in other outside of stretches, but I can tell you in Florida, everybody knew who this guy was. So he was a superstar. But Urban Meyer went with Chris Leak. Now, I think Quinn's better than Chris Leak, but I'm using that as an analogy that, yes, you may have that person that's going to go on and win a Heisman and do all these great things, but at some point, those guys still have to wait their turn, and that's where we are as far as Quinn and Arch.
Again, I'm not in disagreement. Anybody in the chat that thinks I'm in disagreement, I'm not. What I'm saying, like Buck Wild says, silly thought catch. It ain't me. What I'm saying this morning.
You did say that you felt like Texas has a better chance of winning with Arch than Quinn.
No, I said I thought Arch was better than Quinn.
But my question was, come on. Now you're word playing. The question was.
Well, that's what I said.
Yeah, and then I said, okay, but I asked you I asked you the same question again, and you pretty much said, well, he's better. So that was your answer.
Well, at some point, if I think he's better, then he's better. I don't know. What I don't want to do is get into wordplay where I did what I did a week ago, which was, well, Oklahoma's going to blitz more, and you want to focus on the short passing game and the intermediate passing game, and that's what Quinn does really well. And, because that's probably the game plan, he might be better suited for. That's what I did a week ago. I said Quinn might be better suited for a game plan against Oklahoma, and then that turned out to be completely wrong. He wasn't better suited. He didn't play well. They would have been better on offense last week with Arch Manning instead of Quinn Ewers, based on what we've seen Quinn do, what he did in the game. Because Arch could have been bad and still been better than that. Quinn was not good. It's so close right now for me that I don't want to haggle. While I think Arch is the better player, it's probably by that. And there will be games where they'll go throughout the rest of the season where, depending on the opponent and depending on what that team wants to try to do and take away from Texas, that maybe it shifts that that one guy's like 87%, the other guy's like 82%. I don't know. I don't know how to. They're both really, really good, and I think it's a great problem to have if you're Texas. My point is, and I'm going to stress this again, we are at a place, I think, with the Texas fan base moving forward for the rest of the season, that if Quinn has another game like he did on Saturday, I do think there will be a loud fan sentiment, especially if there's any jeopardy in the game. There was no jeopardy on Saturday.
Well, that's what it doesn't. That's why it makes no sense.
Well, and no one on this show is alleging that it did make sense.
Why it doesn't make okay.
But so, when you were at the end of the first quarter, you weren't getting text messages?
No.
Because I can take a screenshot of like what it looked like at the end of the first quarter on my phone. The only thing is, I'd have to like scratch out phone numbers. I don't want any of my boys just getting random angry phone calls.
You did say it.
I do think they would have looked better on Saturday with Arch than Quinn.
Oh, that's fucked.
Ben, kiss my ass.
I didn't mean to put that one on the screen, actually.
I'm just telling you that's where we are. And we're on the same team in terms of what we wouldn't do. It's Quinn Ewers' team. But I'm not going to sit here and lie. You asked me a question who I think is better. I think Arch.
No, I asked you who would get. Do you feel like the simple question? I didn't ask you who was better. My question was, I said, do you feel like Arch gives Texas a better chance of winning against Georgia? You said he's a better quarterback.
I think he might give them a better chance at winning, but he might also give them a better chance of losing. Both of those two things could be true at the same time. I think Arch is the safer play. He should be the steadier play. He should be the guy that, against really good competition, because we've seen him play really good competition in a way we don't have that sample size with Arch. There should be a minimum level of performance that I think we should expect for Quinn. I think Quinn went below that on Saturday. So what I'm saying is, I'd probably start Quinn this weekend. I think he's safe. I think in my mind, that guy at a minimum should be a 160 guy from a pass efficiency standpoint against Georgia this weekend. He should be good, really good. If he dips below that, there will be people calling for Arch to play. I don't expect that I would be one of those guys, because I think the next week, boy, have you let the genie out of the bottle. And I don't think if you're the number one ranked team in the country, you want this type of distraction. I think Sark has managed this looming distraction as well as anybody could. And I love the fact that he's come out and said, look, I played quarterback. The last thing in the world I would want as a starting quarterback is having to look over my shoulder. So he keeps on asserting a very strong message. It's Quinn's team. He's the leader of this team. But he's got to play like that too. And if he doesn't, I think this weekend we saw the first signs of what it would look like, certainly on Orange Bloods, but I think also on social media. I think that the fans will only have so much grace inside of them collectively to give to a quarterback if he's not playing well. And look, man, I'm a Cowboys fan. They got to be in the second quarter yesterday where I was like, put Trey Lance in. It can turn fast.
Do you think if you put a poll up asking who should start against Georgia, do you think you'd have what percentage do you think of people would say Art should start against Georgia?
25.
Well, then there's no groundswell.
But if I had put a poll
that's
up
75,
on
Saturday,
so
that's 75% of people who would say Quinn.
Yes, but if on Saturday at the start of the second quarter against Oklahoma, we had done the same poll, I think it would have been much higher than 25%.
Well, yeah.
But
yes,
that's what we're talking
people
about.
Have knee-jerk reactions inside of the game. Of course, that's sports.
If Quinn plays poorly again, I'm saying that
you don't think there's people in Alabama saying they should that Milrose shouldn't be playing at this point.
No one did that.
I'm just saying. Well, I mean, there's a more of an argument to that Milrose. With his
Milrose is better than Quinn Ewers.
His performance against South Carolina sure don't scream that.
Right, but that was the first time that's really ever happened with Milrose, and he was still really good and won the game. Like I think it's kind of funny that Milrose
against USF. He didn't look great against USF. They were my Bulls were beating the hell out of him for 3 quarters. Until
do you really want me to go to the numbers?
Do you really think like there weren't Bama fans? There's Bama fans right now who are like, DeBoer is trash.
Yeah, but
are they going to fire him?
Trash defensively.
I'm just yeah. The
you don't like Jalen Milroe, and I need you to tell me why.
You don't like Quinn Ewers. It's a Texas-based show. You tell me why.
Quinn Ewers is the 3rd best quarterback in the history of the Texas program last 50 years. That is a truthful statement. The question of can he be better than that is the one that lingers on a daily basis when we do these shows. You can't say that I dislike Quinn while I'm willing to give him. He's so much better than Sam Elliott.
But you'll do 12. You'll do if there's 10 shows. You will do 8 that will question Quinn's ability, and maybe 2 that you might say Quinn is great.
Well, I don't think he's great. I'll do 0 where I say Quinn is great.
Good. So like so it's kind of like
very good.
The ratio of praise to questioning to criticism is really off.
I question Quinn every day.
You have criticized.
It's not criticizing. It's
for the last couple of years.
If I point to this,
so what did he do to you?
Other than not be great, nothing.
My only thing with Milroe, I have nothing against him. I think people overhype him too much, and I still see a quarterback that I still think is limited as a passer. I think he has moments where he looks good as a passer. But I think he's overhyped too much. I don't think that what he does will translate into the NFL. So when we have the conversation of Milroe, and then I see the things that I see, like again, fantastic game against Georgia. But I watched South Carolina with my eyes. I watched South Florida.
Jalen Milroe is the number 2 quarterback in the country right now in passing efficiency. That does nothing to take into account what he does with his feet. If we go to the ESPN,
his passer rating was 142.9.
It wasn't good. He has, I think, in his last 18 starts, posted a quarterback rating better than 175 in 75-80% of those games. I have to go look up the numbers. I don't have them seared into my brain. Quinn's done it a couple of times. Like, my nitpick with Quinn is that he's very good. We're talking about expectations. Look, we've been doing shows in 2017, 2018. We'd probably be talking about Quinn Ewers like he's Superman compared to what previously existed. The bar has been elevated. We are talking about him in the context of 2 first-round level quarterbacks. I think Quinn belongs in the Hall of Very Good right now. One of the things that we're going to find out over the course of what is now the last 6 games of the regular season, 7 if and when they play in an SEC championship, and then however many playoff games they play beyond that. We're going to find out if there is a next step for him that includes sustained greatness. And look, you can say that I'm hard on Quinn, but you know who else I'm hard on? Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy. What I wrote last night that Colt McCoy got on a heater in 2008, a 5-game heater, and then in 2009 regressed to the mean where he was at times not even good. If you go back and look at Colt McCoy, a guy who is revered, his number is retired. He's legitimately thought of as the second best quarterback in the history of the school. And I'm like, go back to 2009, look at Oklahoma, look at Texas Tech, look at Nebraska, look at the 3 toughest teams he played that season. He wasn't good at all. And that's me talking about a guy with his number retired. So it's not like the smoke I have for Quinn when talking about excellence, sustained excellence, is any different than anybody else that I've ever covered at this school. When Vince Young was a young player, I would tell people that dude can't throw a ball to his receiver in the flat without the ball skipping first. Like, we're truth tellers. We tell people what's happening. And Quinn Ewers is very good. You can't even say with a straight face that he's great. So if we're talking,
that's not the conversation, though.
And
that's not the conversation.
What's that?
I've never debated. Like, I'm not saying he's great. I've never even said that. I've never.
Well, how crazy is it to talk about a player who's very good, but not playing very good, if there is an option behind him?
So in the one game he came back from an injury, he wasn't the same quarterback that we saw prior to the injury. And because of that, the same quarterback who was fine against Colorado State, who was fine against Michigan,
excellent in those games,
who had a 213.4 pass rating before he got hurt against UTSA, who then sustains 2 injuries and then comes back to play in one of the more important games of the season. He's supposed to be at 100%, whatever that's supposed to mean. And a guy who hadn't played in a live game was not excellent in a 31-point win. This is the crazy pills that I'm taking on a Monday.
What's the craziness? Because I said time and time again, I wouldn't have given him the hook. I'll give him the grace of a bad game. All I'm saying is that if that repeats itself, there will be calls to play Arch. That's my statement.
Well,
now, it's delved into who I think is better, and the answer to that is I think Arch is better.
Yeah, 2 different conversations. Again, upside versus whatever. You think Arch is better this year. I don't. I think Quinn.
I think Arch would have played better on Saturday than Quinn did.
I don't think we have. Well, first of all, OU doesn't put up anything of a struggle.
Well, no, but you're still playing against that defense. I don't think he misses wide open guys. I don't think he throws off his back foot.
You saw La Monroe happen, right?
He was fine against La Monroe.
He missed wide open guys in that game as well. He also held on to the ball a little bit too long as well. Like,
and that's going to happen.
He wasn't perfect.
Exactly.
So you're saying, oh, that's going to happen. But now you're saying, well, that will never happen.
I've never said that.
I'm making crazy picks. You just said, well, it's going to happen.
What did I say?
You just said he doesn't miss wide open throws. And I said, did you watch the La Monroe game? And you go, well, that happens. That's going to happen.
Okay.
I'm literally taking crazy pills right now.
You're not, but maybe you should.
But this show is making me crazy. I can tell you that much.
I mean, look, I can't help it that you've married yourself to a guy who's just pretty good. He's very good.
Well,
you wrote last week that Quinn Ewers was about to get ready to make a run for the Heisman.
Yep. Is it? And you think that?
And I thought that was crazy a week ago.
And you think that the performance against Oklahoma has disqualified him from the conversation?
Nah.
If he goes and balls out and has a 180 rating versus Georgia in a win in prime time, you don't think everybody's going to be talking about him again?
I think the thing that Quinn's got to do to get himself back in the Heisman race, and unlike what you said about Jalen Milroe, a bad performance last week didn't take him out of the Heisman discussion. Saturday doesn't take Quinn out of the Heisman discussion. There is a pathway for him to get back into the Heisman. Like I said, I think he could absolutely be a Heisman finalist when it's all said and done. It's hard for me to believe that if he went on a real heater that he could still win the Heisman, because, I mean, he's been just kind of a guy so far nationally through, he ranks middle of the pack in terms of passing. He doesn't have the big stats. Nobody really thinks, you and I think that I think the Michigan performance, even though statistically, like from an efficiency standpoint, doesn't scream. I thought that was his best performance of his career. I thought he was scintillating against Michigan. The thing about Quinn and the Heisman that I had, the real doubt for me is that he's got to go on a 2008 Colt McCoy heater where 5 or 6 consecutive weeks of play, he looks like the best quarterback we've ever seen with our own eyes. And the problem with Quinn thus far in his career is that the performances above very good are very inconsistently available. Now, my hope coming out of like the injury was that if you look at the first 10 quarters of this season, Quinn was scintillating, great in the opener. I think the numbers don't do him justice against Michigan. He was so much better against Michigan than he was against Alabama. Everybody wants to give him a ton of love for that Alabama game last year. And look, he deserves it. He played really, really well. But I also thought a big part of that game was he had a couple of receivers that made incredible plays. I think he was really, really, really great in Ann Arbor. And then he was on his way to putting up a crazy number against UTSA. So the first 10 quarters of this season, he's playing like a Heisman finalist. My hope would be that would have just instantly continued on Saturday and away we go. And maybe he is approaching greatness. My concern for Quinn, just through the rest of the season, unless he gets hurt again, he's going to be the starter. Is how many times in the final 6 weeks will he be great? How many times will he be very good? I would bet my house that we won't see another Saturday like the one we did against Oklahoma. I think that's the floor. He's better than that. But is he great? That's what he needs to be able. I'd love to see it on Saturday. Man, I'd love to do a post-game show on Saturday where all we do is, sing the praises of how good he played. I just, we haven't seen it enough at this point to say that that's who he is.
All right, we have a bunch of super chats that are backed up, and I still got to get down to Sark in a little bit.
Well, let's knock out like 5 minutes of super chats. I'm looking for them. My chat fell behind, so I'm just scrolling through the chat and looking for super chats. And weirdly,
started with Money B. Money B was the first one. He wanted to talk about defense, so he was the first guy that came in.
All right, well, let's do that. Let's do this one just because I found it. Brian for $1.99 says, "What's the score at half this week with the same start?"
I mean, we talk about the Mississippi State. Georgia was struggling against Mississippi State. And Mississippi State was god awful. Now I understand things are going to change. But what's the score if Georgia? Do I have to? Can I factor in Georgia and what they look like last week as well?
How many points do we think? How many points do we think Texas will need to score this week to win?
I mean, it got to be probably 30. I don't know, because their defense is pretty damn good. I don't know. I don't know if the Texas defense is going to give up 30 plus points. For me, maybe they need to score like 24-ish or so. I mean, it would be a hell of. I mean, Georgia probably should put up more of a fight. Right now, I'm without on the spot. I'm thinking early 20s.
I don't know. My instincts say a little bit more than that, Anwar, but you might be right. Like both of these two teams can score a lot of points, but both of these teams, on paper, Texas's defense is better than Georgia's by a lot. Like if you look at the stats, Texas isn't giving up 30-something points to Mississippi State. By the way, I can't find any of these super chats.
I don't know. Maybe they just took them away. maybe they hit the refund button on it.
I've scrolled and scrolled and scrolled, and I'm still scrolling, and I just don't see any super chats. So if anybody sent a super chat that we missed, do like a $sign or something, and like we'll put them up there, but they are not.
No, but Money B I know for sure Money B put one in. He was asking about the defense, and again, maybe they got tired of waiting and just took the money away. I don't know if that's an option, but
I don't think it is. I don't think Apple allows for that to happen because they'd have to give their portion of money back too. God, we should have bookmarked those tweets or those comments because I don't see them now. Money B, give us your super chat again, whatever it was. We'll assume that this is the super
Rich chat. Money says,
I'm telling you, something weird's going on though, because this was happening last week. We were apparently missing super chats, but I tell you what I can do, and this won't be quick. I might be able to go to YouTube, click on the show, and then scroll back on the chat from there. I'm trying something a little different, Anwar. Okay, there's Brian's. And that's as far back as it's letting me go. Okay. Money B, we owe you one. It's just all there is to it. Anything else? I got to be honest. If I see the next person that types out Girth Ketchum, I'm going to ban from the chat. Like, I don't quite get it, but like, it's become a thing, and I'm going to nip that. So, FYI.
I don't even know how it got it started. I don't know what that's about. So I'm really late to whatever that's about.
I don't know what it's about either, but like, it's enough. I don't see any other super chats. There's nothing I can do. I can't salvage the super chat. I can't find them anywhere.
Yeah, I'm going to try. No, hold on. Let me try something. Let's not go anywhere. I want to try something real quick.
Well, I'm letting Money B retype in the question, but Money B hasn't typed in the question again.
I mean,
was there anybody else with super chats? How can I be missing all of the super chats?
All right, so let me see. Let me purchase one. Let me see what happens if I purchase one. I'm gonna purchase one and see.
Well, we saw Brian's.
Yeah, but I want to make sure they're all showing up. So the only way to do that is to do it in real time now, right? So let me do this. All right, so now I am buying one.
Here's one. He's going for the corner. Says, I'll do another. Talk about underrated anthills on a national level. The kid is everywhere. He's a day one pick. He's actually been the best linebacker in the country this season. I went and looked up the numbers yesterday. He's going for the corner. No linebacker in the SEC has more tackles for loss. No linebacker in the SEC has more sacks. If you look nationally, I think if I remember my numbers correctly, there's 2 players at the linebacker position in all of the major conferences that have more tackles for loss than he does. And there's only one. There's a kid from Purdue that has 5 sacks or like half a sack more than Anthony Hill, we're watching a special player have a special season. And it's not ludicrous to think that when this thing's over with, Anthony Hill is going to have double-digit numbers in sacks, which is bonkers to me because a guy like Derek Johnson never had more than 4 sacks in a season, if I'm not mistaken. It had very few sacks towards the end of his career. Maybe as a freshman, it was like 4 or 5. But Anthony Hill is doing something right now. He's having the type of season that we've not seen a Texas linebacker have in my lifetime. So I think Anthony Hill has to be a favorite for the Butkus Award. And I think he'll be a semifinalist. And if he keeps this up, he will be a finalist for the Butkus Award because the numbers that he's posting right now are unlike any other linebacker in the country. And oh, by the way, he's on the number 1 team in the country. Players on number 1 teams in the country tend to get the benefit of the doubt in awards races big time. Which, if we're talking about Quinn, like, I don't know that Quinn's a Heisman finalist, but if he can stay healthy, Anwar, I think he'll be a Davey O'Brien finalist. I think Quinn will make some awards like as a finalist because I think a lot of guys on this team I think a guy like Jahdae Barron, if he can get a couple of numbers, he could be a Thorpe semifinalist / finalist. I think there are a lot of guys. I think Colin Simmons is on a pathway to potentially being defensive freshman of the year. So this is a team. Gunnar Helm, I bet, ends up being in the Mackey Award discussion. Kelvin Banks will be in Lombardi and all of the linemen stuff. So, yeah, I think that if they can keep this up, you'll see a lot of guys on this team nominated for big awards.
That's putting up the other super chat here, Rich Money. He goes, I'm going to do mine again too. He goes, I asked about the pass defense because they haven't been tested yet with the QBs we've played. Beck will test them.
Yes, he will.
They haven't played a quarterback who can really throw the ball yet. That has not happened. That Michigan didn't have a quarterback who could really throw the ball. Obviously, UTSA, Colorado State. You go through everybody, even up to this past weekend. To your point, Rich Money Cash, they haven't played anybody who can sling it. You know, they've had really one-dimensional kind of guys.
Crazy to think that you could get 6 games into the season, and not face anybody that you really respect.
One that you're like, all right, man, we'll just do man. Like, it don't matter. Like, or we've got this. We can get there for our pass rush, like anything. And I think the thing that Sark pointed out is, and it goes back to the other question about what the score would be. Remember Sark pointed this out a couple of weeks ago when he talked about the Georgia-Alabama game. It's like, no matter what, at the end of the day, like, Georgia's probably going to make a comeback at some point, and you got to be ready for that. So that'll be the interesting thing. No matter where Texas is, Georgia will have momentum. By the way, speaking of, and there's a super chat there. Well, Benji asks, let's just I want to make sure we knock out super chats faster. I'll ask that question later.
I don't know, Ben. Like, the margins on this for me are really narrow, and I know that's a wishy-washy way of answering the question. When I say that I think Texas has 2 of the top 10 quarterbacks in the country, I think it's really close. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, that depending on the game, from matchup to matchup, maybe it's a slightly different answer. I would start Quinn this week for a million reasons. And I think in trying to answer this question, it's so close that I would go to different reasons and different questions. I don't know, Arch, Quinn, I think Texas couldn't go wrong with a decision on who to start this weekend. But I would start Quinn. So now, but I don't think I would start Quinn because I believe with 100% factuality that he gives Texas a better shot. I might think that, but I don't know that. And that's part of this conversation with a little bit of nuance that we're having, is that I think they've got 2 guys that are really, really good. Is either great yet? Probably not yet. That hasn't been proven. So it's really hard to take two guys that are very good and say which of the very goods is better than the other very good if neither are great. They both have had moments, spells of greatness. Quinn against the best team that Texas has played so far. His performance against Michigan is the best quarterback performance of all of the performances this season. So, Quinn.
But what I was going to ask you is, how the hell does Kirby Smart get away with being physical with a player, and that doesn't get flagged by any stretch of the imagination, and it looks like he's going unscathed here? What if that player would have just swung on him and just knocked him out? Like, how? I'm trying to understand a world where that actually was okay. Like that literally is okay for Kirby Smart to hit a player, and that's all right. Like that, something about that.
An official saw it, was staring right at it, Anwar. If you watch the official's head and body language, you can tell he thought that was messed up. He looks at Smart like, what did you just do? And he didn't throw a flag. By the way, Opinion Sports Show was like, well, Stutzman has more tackles. He does have slightly more tackles, but Stutzman has 46 tackles on the season. Anthony Hill has 42. Stutzman has 3.5 tackles for loss and no sacks. And Anthony Hill has 8.5 tackles for loss and 4.5 sacks and an interception and a forced fumble. Stutzman has no sacks, no created turnovers. He doesn't belong in the same sentence with Anthony Hill right now. Anthony Hill's on pace almost for a double-digit sack season. Danny Stutzman's on pace for 0 sacks. So I like Danny Stutzman, but he doesn't belong in the same sentence with Anthony Hill at this point. And I am sorry that a week ago I gave Stutzman the benefit of the doubt. Anthony Hill, I am so sorry. I was wrong.
Last thing I'll say, and I got to roll. Stutzman played for a defense that gave up 34 points in a rivalry. That's not his real super chat, by the way.
I know, but I thought it was funny. And in the event that we stole $5 from Sandman, I wanted to just give him his pretend fake Monopoly money super chat.
He made references to Tom G in the chat, so that's what he was referring to.
So that's the man on Saturday.
Yeah, but no. So I got to run. But Stutzman, you got another super chat that came in. Yeah, and that's my point. You can't stand on the hill for a guy that they just got the asses handed to them, because no matter what you want to say about it's the Opinion Sports Show or Bo or any other guys who are friends of the show, no matter what you want to say about the injuries on offense, at the end of the day, your defense got their asses handed to them.
I thought Billy Bowman quit on Saturday.
He didn't look that good. I don't know if he quit. But
I think as soon as he made one tackle.
Yeah.
After he whiffed on that long Trey Wisner run, I didn't see him involved in anything the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So that's my thing. I think your offense may have injuries. Use it as an excuse. Your defense sort of sucks as well, and there's no excuse for that, especially from a defensive-minded coach. That's the kind of thing we used to talk about with Charlie. Like, look, it's okay if your offense isn't good, but if you're the defensive guy, you have to have a good defense.
Justin,
I'll let you talk about you do that.
I'm going to wrap it up. So you go.
Okay.
We'll do this. We'll do final super chats. Just a dude who's RB1. I think it's got to be Wisner, but I think the coaching staff will likely go with the hot hand the rest of the season. So you'll probably see, like you did on Saturday, Blue got the start. He gets the first set of carries. Then Wisner comes in. He gets a little bit of work, and it'll be a meritocracy from game to game. The guy that in the real time is showing that he deserves more carries than the other will probably be the guy that gets the carries. I don't know that Wisner is the guy for the rest of the season, but I think that opportunity is there for him. Let's see. Are there any other questions? Did I miss anybody else's super chat? Seriously. Like, I don't want anybody to have hard feelings about super chats. So if I left anybody out, Money B, you know I'll take care of you. Money B, here we go. Here's the super chat. Let's talk about this defense. Pass rushers rolling, and we're not giving up big plans. PK is cooking right now. Now, Money B, I plan on talking about this a lot in the show that I have to do in an hour and 35 minutes. However, let me give you some stats. I looked up all of the major defensive stats across the country. Texas, these are Texas's rankings nationally in each of these categories. First in scoring defense, first in total defense, second in passing yards allowed, 23rd in rushing yards allowed, seventh in third down defense, second in red zone defense, first nationally in red zone scores allowed, second nationally in rushing touchdowns allowed in the red zone, fifth nationally in first downs allowed, second nationally in team defensive pass efficiency, 15th in sacks, 8th in tackles for loss, 19th in turnovers gained. They're in top 3 in a lot of critical categories. They're in top 25 in everything, except even in rushing yards allowed, which is the weak link of the defense. They're 4th in the SEC and 23rd nationally. So you're right. The defense has been bananas. And we will continue. Look, man, it's Monday. We got like 20 shows to do on Orange Bloods Live between now and Saturday. Trust me, defense is going to get its love. Okay, guys, I got to go. Sandman. I need YouTube to give me a transcript of this. And you know what? The thing is, we usually see Chad does a real good job. Pull the curtain behind. There's like a little star on every chat. And if you star it, it favorites the chat, of which you can go to a section of your favorites and they don't go anywhere. We should have starred the super chats, but Anwar didn't do it. And I was blabbering too much and wasn't paying attention. So sorry about that. I'm good for it. You can come house divided in 90 minutes. If I owe you a super chat, I'll hook you up. You won't have to pay twice. I definitely don't like that you got to pay twice to get your comment read. So just let me know. You can even pretend. You can lie to me in the name of getting it right and making sure that everybody gets treated the way they need to be treated. I will make sure that you are heard. Guys, for myself, Opinion Sports Show, I see your comment, but you don't make today's show. For myself and Anwar, who had to leave because Sarkeesian talks in an hour, hit that thumbs up button. Although I'd admit it, maybe we didn't quite earn it as much as we do on most shows. I mean, mic issues in the beginning, tardiness. For myself and Anwar and the producer that we don't have,